Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 28 of SuperSports, the review series for Gran Turismo's selection of vehicles of a performance nature, of an exotic nature, that fall quite nicely between sports cars and supercars. And in this episode we're featuring a vehicle which, back in 2004, showed a lot of promise as to what the next generation of an icon could have been like. It's the Honda or Acura HSC concept, which could well have become the next NSX. Now, as it happens, looking back, of course it didn't become the next NSX. But on the game we have the opportunity to use this car to our advantage, and I have to say, this is a remarkably good car, and a severely underappreciated one as well. Now, although it didn't become the next NSX, it essentially is one. It shares many of the same cues of the NSX visually and technically. It has a very similar spec, especially to the Type R NSX, and it holds to the purities, really, I would say, of the NSX. The NSX was always about being a superbly engineered sports car, rather than just something which was fast but would kill you at the sight of the first corner or would break down before you even started driving it. Reliability was never really an issue with the NSX. I don't really hear people complaining about it being a badly engineered car. The main problem with the NSX was that it offered a good sports car for the price of much better sports cars. Porsche money for something which was nowhere near as quick as a Porsche in a straight line. Around the track, perhaps, it could give many sports cars a great run, but what people wanted from the NSX was something to take on cars like Lamborghinis, Porsches, Ferraris, Maseratis, and what they ended up with was a car which was brilliant in its own way, but was almost on a level of its own, a niche, if you will. What the HSC could have done, and what it does do in its concept form, is delivers what the NSX could have been as a slightly more redesigned and appealing package. For a start, there's the looks. Now, the NSX isn't a bad looking machine, but it's a design which, although it ages well, it certainly ages quickly. It's very much a design of the 90s. The HSC isn't. It's, to some degree, a timeless design. You could imagine this car coming out now. With a few very minor styling changes, it could quite easily be a 2016 model. The NSX could not be. Now, the new NSX, of course, is completely restyled again and is an utterly different machine. This held, I should say, much truer to the ethos of the NSX, that small, naturally aspirated VTEC engine with strong performance for a relatively modest spec. And this car does that very well. It has a 3.2 litre naturally aspirated mid-mounted engine, just like the NSX. It powers the rear wheels and has a 6-speed gearbox. The power is very similar to the NSX Type R at 489 horsepower, and also, like most Hondas, it doesn't produce a massive amount of torque at 345 pound-feet. Thankfully, however, despite not having a massive amount of power and torque, it more than makes up for that in the same way as the NSX Type R, which is ultra low weight. It weighs only 1,059 kilos with the full weight loss package, which puts many super sports cars to shame on this game, especially newer ones. Now, it doesn't have a massive amount of power to deal with, but despite that, because of the low weight, it still puts out a pretty decent 462 horsepower per tonne, and the PP, thanks to that low power, also isn't particularly high. It's 554, which is perfect for this car. It makes a superb 550 PP all the way down to, say, 500 PP racer. But the burning question is, if this is in many ways very similar to the NSX is a sports car for the most part, with the Type R being the really only exception to that. The only real-life exception, that is. So why is this in a SuperSports series? Well, for two main reasons. One, because of the marketing. The way the car is designed, the way the car is presented is much more of an exotic machine than the NSX ever was. And obviously that's just looks, but looks are a massive part of why people buy sports cars and super sports cars, and this car finally ticked that box to the utmost degree, whereas the NSX was good looking but never really exciting enough compared to something like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Not for many people anyway, that's why they had bad sales. But the main reason why I'm including this car is because of what it can do with the spec that it's given. Now the NSX Type R, when we reviewed that car in a previous episode, had amazing, phenomenal even, handling. And its top speed was remarkably good for its power, around 235 to 240 miles per hour. This car is even better. Now the handling isn't necessarily quite as sharp as the Type R, but it's still very good. And more importantly to the NSX, the top speed is better. Over 250 miles per hour under its own power means that this is a true, full-on super sports car on Gran Turismo, and it can more than take on most of the other cars in this series. That means that this car is faster than the V12 Vantage RS, the Alpha 8C, the Maserati Gran Turismo, and a variety of others which have a better spec. The only downside to this car is the price. It is supercar money at $750,000, but that's because it's a concept. So overall, if you're looking for a car which hardly anyone uses but is brilliant for its spec, the HSC is a great choice to go for. But that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.